Hi everyone, it's Barbara and welcome back to my channel. Today I have some bathroom organization DIYs using Dollar Tree items, and we're going to go ahead and get started on our first project. Using this plastic tray from Dollar Tree, once I remove the tag, I will take some sandpaper and go over the entire top portion of this so that my paint will adhere better to this plastic tray. Using Waverly White chalk paint, I gave the top part, including the outside rim of this tray, 2 thin coats, allowing it to dry in between coats. I did not paint the bottom because it was already white. After that paint dries, I'm going to use some matte Mod Podge to not only seal this paint in, but to keep it from pulling up off of the plastic tray once I add my painter's tape on there to create my design. Allow the Mod Podge to completely dry before I make my markings, and I'm just using this mat from Dollar Tree, and I am measuring 1 inch off of each corner of the inside of the tray so I'll know where to place my painter's tape. I wanted to create a beautiful design on this tray with 2 different widths of paint lines. So I am just placing the painter's tape where I made those markings, and then I'm going to eyeball it to create a small thin line so I can paint that black using my black chalkboard craft paint. I get this from Dollar General. I'm going to give that 1 good coat, including the outside portion of the rim of the tray. Then remove my painter's tape. Now the lines were not as crisp as I wanted them to be, so I will go in and fix that with my oil-based Sharpie. You can find these at Hobby Lobby. I'll try to link it in my Amazon store, but I know you can find them at Hobby Lobby. Now I'm taking the painter's tape and just going slightly to the left-hand side of the original line that I painted so that I can create leave that white so I can make a thicker black line on the other side. So on the right-hand side, I went a little bit slightly over to the right, and then I'm going to tape up the inside edge, and I'm not too worried about the top portion of the tray because I can go in and fix that. I wanted to get the majority of these painted with my black chalkboard craft paint. This takes 1 coat and then a touch up here and there wherever the white might be coming through. Using my hairdryer to kind of speed up the drying process of the black paint, and then I can remove my painter's tape. And again, these lines are not going to be as crisp as I wanted them to, so I will go in and fix that. Now I put that Mod Podge on to prevent the paint from coming off the tray, and that worked perfectly, but I did not allow my black paint to dry enough. That's why it came off on some of those sections when I pulled the tape up. I used a pencil to try to get the width of that paint strip all the way across the top part of the tray, and went in and filled that in with the black chalk paint and cleaned up some of those lines with that oil-based Sharpie and some white paint. Using some of these poster stickers from Dollar Tree, I'm finding the center of the tray so that I can place the middle letter. I always like to start in the center and then work my way out to make sure that I have the same distance between each letter. Once I have all of these in place, I'll take the matte Mod Podge and go over this entire tray. Since I'm going to have this in the bathroom, I want to protect that chalk paint as well as seal those stickers in. Allow that to dry, and now you have a gorgeous, beautiful tray to display in your bathroom. You can put decor on it. You could put makeup, nail polish. The possibilities are endless. I love how this tray turned out. It looks very spa-like. Let me know what you think. If this is your first time visiting my channel and you are enjoying today's DIYs, I would love for you to click that subscribe button and the notification bell so you'll be notified the next time I upload a new video. And also, I would love for you to visit me on my other social media platforms. Let's get started on project number 2. Using a plunger from Dollar Tree, we're only going to use the handle, so we're going to remove the bottom part of that and set it to the side. We will also be using 2 Dollar Tree round wire baskets. and 4 metal bushings. Now I had these on hand. You can get these at Tractor Supply, an assorted pack for $3.49. I used my handsaw to cut the end of the plunger off and then use sandpaper to sand that down nice and smooth. The rounded edge, which was the top part of the plunger, I'm drilling a hole through so that I will be able to place a handle there. And then use my sandpaper to sand any rough edges. You guys, I found this cute mini vacuum on Amazon, which I have listed in my store. I believe it was about $15. This is a lifesaver. It is amazing. I love it. To create the handle for the top of this basket tray, I'm using a Dollar Tree book ring, and I just wanted to make sure that it was going to fit in there properly before I painted anything. I'm painting the book ring, the handle, and the 4 bushings in the black chalkboard craft paint. Now my bushings are 1 inch in diameter on the center, and they're not small enough. Like I said, this is just what I had on hand, but I'll show you how I fixed that. They're just not wide, they're too wide for the plunger handle. Applying the flat part of the plunger handle into the center of the wire basket so I can use my wire cutters to cut those pieces out so that the plunger will fit through the center of the basket. And once I have that done, I do make sure that the handle is going to fit in there perfectly. Then I can take that basket and set it inside the other basket and use it as a guide to cut the wires from there so that everything will be centered and symmetrical when we put the handle together through these baskets. Using some E6000, I'm going to attach the flat part of those bushings to the bottom part of these wire baskets around those holes. So these bushings have a flat side and then they have a little bit of a rounded side. So I am applying the flat side to the bottom of each basket. Set those to the side and let that E6000 set up. While that was drying, I decided that I wanted to make some feet for the bottom of this. So I'm using 4 of these wooden beads. Again, I get these from Amazon and I have it linked in my Amazon store. So this was a little bit of an afterthought. That's why I didn't paint it with the other items. I'm going to put these on a Dollar Tree barbecue skewer, and this made it so much easier to be able to paint each one of these beads. Again, I'll use my hairdryer to speed up the drying process so that I'll be able to attach these to the bottom of the basket as feet. And I'm going to attach that using some hot glue, and I'm just going to place them 2 opposite of each other so you have 4 total. Once I have those in place, I can flip this basket over and put the handle into the center where that bushing is. Now, this is where it's going to be a little bit wobbly. So I'm taking this bushing and putting it on the top. So my original thought was to hot glue these 2 bushings together and squeeze them flat where the wire was in the middle. But because that diameter was too big, it is still a little wobbly and not secure as I wanted it to be. I made sure that I had the bottom part of that sticking out to be flush with the ends or bottoms of those beads so everything will sit nice and flush when you set it down. To fix that wobbliness and not being so secure on the bottom, I took some hemp rope and hot glue and wrapped that around quite a few times until I filled that in so that the basket can't slide down on that plunger handle any further than where that hemp rope is, because I'm not going to set anything heavy in any of these baskets anyway. Then I will do the same thing on the inside of the basket, wrapping that hemp rope around maybe 3 or 4 times just to make sure it's nice and secure and the basket doesn't slide up and down on the plunger handle. Taking the second basket, I'm going to slide it over the handle to determine how high I want it to be up on top of the handle. Hold my hand in place so I can add some hemp rope there, so when I add the basket, it won't slide down any further than the hemp rope is. Again, I wrap that around maybe 3 or 4 times just to have it thick enough so it wouldn't slide any further down. and I will put hemp rope in the top as well. It still wasn't as sturdy as I wanted it to be, so I'm using the round wood circle from the puzzle piece game from Dollar Tree, some E6000 and hot glue to give it a nice base so that it will sit flatter and be a little bit more sturdy. Then I place some paint in there just to give it a little bit of weight until that glue set up. Using that book ring, I'm going to insert that into the hole, and it's a really good, nice, tight fit, so I don't have to glue that in, and it's just going to be a decorative handle. Taking the black chalkboard paint, I'm going to go back over all of the hemp rope that I added, as well as that wooden circle on the bottom to finish it, and everything will match and be cohesive. This turned out so beautiful. Again, I wouldn't put anything too heavy in it, but I love how this piece turned out. You could use it to store so many items and set it right on your bathroom counter. Let's get started on project number 3. Using some 5-gallon paint stir sticks, I picked these up at Lowe's. You're going to need 1 pack of 3, which is like 98 cents, and then 1 extra one. Using 3 of these same size signs from Dollar Tree. I'm going to begin by taking the painter sticks and I'm going to cross them over to make an X. So I'm just going to overlap one on the other. Use one of the signs and line it up with the outside corners of the painter sticks to the outside corner of the sign. Hold that as level as possible and then make a marking so I'll know how to cut my angles. Using my hand miter shears, they're a little bit difficult to use. I do have to score it a couple of times until I'm able to cut those in pieces off, but it's probably because this wood is a little bit thicker and harder to cut than just regular softwood. I cut those 2 angles and then held each one up to the other 2 to create the same angles at the bottom. Now I overlapped them again, held them in place where I wanted them to be, and made a marking so I'll know where to make my cuts because I want these X's to be flush rather than overlapping, so I'm going to cut that center piece out. I held that in place with a clamp so that I was able to take the other 2 and line them up with that X to try to get it as close as identical as possible, but it's not going to be identical once you cut those pieces off. But just try to get it as close as you can. Using the outside corners at the bottom of the top of the handle of the paint stick, I set the sign on there so that I could draw the line across there to make the angles for the top piece, and then I can cut those out with those handheld miter shears. And what I did for that is once I cut those 2, I just held one with the same angle at the bottom on top of the other painter stick to draw my angles. So I cut the first 2 and then I used those to create the other 2 pieces, so you'll have 2 identical pieces for one side and 2 for the other that you're going to switch. I hope that makes sense. It's a little bit confusing. Then I just held the center part together with a clamp so I could make marks where they overlap. So when I cut the center section out of one of those paint sticks, I'll know exactly where to line each of those pieces up to glue them together so that they will be as close to the same as possible for each X. Now I can again take those miter shears and cut those center sections out. I have these miter shears listed in my Amazon store if you are interested in them. I think they were like $15, I'm not sure. They do come in handy on softwood. They are just a lifesaver. Using some Gorilla wood glue, and I set this down on some wax paper so I didn't glue it to my table, I'm going to place some glue on the end and then line it up where I made those previous marks, and then I can cut the other section, that bottom section off, and glue it where I placed the marks at the bottom of that single paint stick. And then I can take my clamp and hold everything together until that wood glue sets up. And I'll do the exact same thing with the other X. And I let my glue set for quite a few hours just to make sure it was going to be nice and sturdy. And I did hold it all together with clamps until all the glue set. So they are pretty sturdy. Again, I'm not going to set anything too heavy on this because there's no nails or anything holding it together. It's just the wood glue. I removed all of the hangers from the sign and tried to remove as much paper from the front as possible because it was overlapping. You could paint over top of that, but I felt like the paper might just peel up. So I tried to remove as much as possible, and then I went over all of that with sandpaper to get it nice and smooth and get all of that extra paper off. I filled in the holes where the hangers were with some spackling. You could use wood filler, caulking, whatever you have on hand. While that's drying, I'm using the Waverly White chalk paint and gave each of these X's one coat all the way around all of the sides and 2 coats on each one of these signs on the entire sign, inside and out, and the top rim as well. So they're all going to be covered with 2 coats of the Waverly White chalk paint. And of course, you're going to allow all of that to dry before you assemble this together. I'm using some of the wood cubes from Dollar Tree. You get the package. It shows 4 here, but I do end up using 10. I don't know what I was thinking when I took 4 out, but you do use 10, and that is going to be the support to hold these signs together to make this tray. Taking one of the signs, I'm going to hold it up to the bottom of one of the X's. Now it is going to sit a little higher. It's not going to be flush to the bottom of the actual paint sticks themselves. I just wanted to make sure that I have it as level as possible, the sign part, before I glue the wood cubes down. I just glued the wood cubes to the paint sticks, and once I have those in place, I can then glue the sign itself to the wood cubes and the paint stick. And try to hold it level so that when you add your other side, it'll be nice and level and not kind of leaning. Once I have the bottom sign in place, or I'm going to call them trays now, once I have the bottom tray in place, I'm going to do the exact same thing for the top. So the angles are not going to line up perfectly with the sign, so I just let them come up a little bit higher than that tray at the top. And I'm going to do the exact same thing by gluing those wood cubes down and then gluing the sign, the tray itself, to the wood cubes and the paint sticks. And I did the top and bottom first so that I could kind of measure the distance for the center one, so I would have the same amount of distance between each one of these trays. And then I can place my wood cube right there once I determine the width that I need it to be between each one onto the paint stick. Again, then I can glue the tray itself to the X and the wood cube. Let all of that glue set up so your signs don't move around too much. And then you can add your other X to the trays on that side. And I did not measure it perfectly. My X's are not perfect, so I eyeballed them to try to make them as the tray parts as level as possible. And then I added the wood cubes just like I did on the other side. Each time I just kind of held it up, made sure the tray was exactly where I wanted it to be level. Then I could add the cubes and then add the glue to the sign and the paint sticks. And I hope that made sense, you guys. Now this project is finished. I think it turned out gorgeous. Again, I wouldn't set anything too heavy on it, but I love the design. I love those X's on the outside. It's very unique, and I love how it turned out. If you have a favorite, please let me know in the comment section down below which one is your favorite. Thank you so much for watching. I truly do appreciate each and every one of you. Please take care, and I will see you guys in the next video.